What is up, Los Angeles, and welcome back to your Rams LAFB show. We are doing our part 2 on the Rams draft. If you haven't seen it already, we already did part 1, covering all things, the first 3 picks, spending a lot of time talking about the big one, Ty Simpson, Max Clare, and then the offensive lineman, whose name I always forget. But we covered those.
Keegan Trost.
There we go. Keegan Trost, the offensive lineman. So we covered all those already. We're going to finish up that, and the Rams also announced the UDFA class. So it's huge. It's a big one, guys. So we're not going to really dive into them because there's just too many to process right now. But we'll just kind of go a bit of a overview of those guys and just kind of takeaways from that. But we also have some Ty Simpson news dropping, a little bit of tea out there in the world. Help me to do all of this, as always, Erin Coscarelli here on the Rams LAFB show, brought to you by FanDuel. Erin, how we doing? And just how a couple of days to process, get some sleep, catch up on things.
Yep.
How we feeling about this Rams team after a couple of days?
I think we touched on it a couple days ago. Everything makes sense. I think the bigger deal is the circus media fan reaction where everyone wants to turn into some kind of big deal. But I think the question always was, were we going to see immediate impact or future building? Like, we all act like we know more than what the guys on the inside who are crunching the numbers, scouting the college recruits, and trying to sort of think we can outsmart probably the smartest, if not, one of the smartest organizations in the NFL. They went future with every single one of their picks. And as we said before, most of the time, the rookies never play anyways. So I think if you have your highest draft opportunity to pick at number 13 overall, don't you want to go with the highest, if this is the guy you think has the IQ to match and have the maturation to figure out a Sean McVay like system, then this is probably the right play. I asked fans, I'm like, when's the right time to do something like this? Later on in the draft, get a guy in the 6th or 7th or 4th or 5th round. I mean, I kind of felt like this was the best choice. We just don't know. We won't know for 2 to 3 years. But here's the good news. Hopefully we won't know for 2 to 3 years, because if we don't see Ty Simpson playing on the football field, that means Matthew Stafford, which down the pipeline, we're going to see his contract come around. I mean, do you have any idea of how soon Stafford could be signing? And here's the other question, which we won't know, but it's a good question to ponder. Does the Ty Simpson draft pick move or delay or change the momentum of the Stafford deal, right?
Yeah, I mean, from a negotiating standpoint, and you and I have been on the same page about drafting a quarterback for a couple of years now, it seems like, but with this one for sure. But, from a negotiating standpoint, this sets the Rams a little bit behind the 8 ball with the Stafford team. An agent's job is to make sure his 10% is as big as his 10% can possibly be. His job is to make sure that Matthew Stafford gets the biggest and longest contract that they can negotiate. And having the heir apparent on the roster now, it changes where the Rams are from a negotiating standpoint. What's funny about the 2 to 3 years thing now about Ty Simpson is only after he was drafted did people start talking about Matthew Stafford as more than a 1-year prospect. They stopped talking about his back and just started talking about how awesome he looked last year. And now everybody's like, Ty Simpson might not get on the field for another 2 years. Everybody's been thinking about Matthew Stafford, including the Rams, as a 2-year prospect. So, and that's another reason why you gotta strike while the iron is hot. When you have a pick this high, you gotta go for it. And I we're both on the record now in in that regard. So, from the negotiating thing, they said a lot of good progress. The last we heard anyway, a lot of good progress has been made. I'm sure there's been a lot of conversations since then. So we're kind of a wait and see. There's nothing's come out about it. So in other news, I mean, Ty Simpson was out there. I saw it via Les Snead, and he was on Pat McAfee talking about the process and wanting guys to keep visits quiet so that it doesn't become a big media story. And you saw from Ty himself talking from another outlet. What did he say, and what was kind of your reaction to it?
Good setup there. Good setup. Well, I mean, I guess, we and I spoke with you after and throughout the draft. I mean, we were around Ty, who mentioned, he didn't really have a ton of interaction with head coach Sean McVay. And then as early as today, or even, yesterday evening, it started to kind of come out that Ty Simpson actually had secret meetings with Sean McVay before the draft. And again, it turns into sort of this frenzy of reading between the tea leaves and trying to extract things that can create more of a headline cycling news drama. And I think, I hope they had meetings before they actually signed the guy. It makes a lot of sense. And of course, we also are talking about Les Snead going on the Pat McAfee show and talking about they just wanted to keep it under wraps, as they should. It's a very, you just don't want things to get out of hand if you can keep it quiet and you can keep it personal. And really it worked because nobody kind of had Ty Simpson on the bingo card. So yeah, again, just more and more things kind of are coming up, circulating around this story, trying to maybe make it bigger than it actually is. Look, they met with the guy. They ended up liking the guy. They drafted the guy. But who's the guy? It's still Stafford. We seem to forget that Stafford had a back issue in the beginning of training camp last year.
Yeah.
I mean, we all hope and wish Stafford has a very long and, 2 years, 3 years would be ideal, but you just don't ever know. So they needed to draft an insurance plan. They did their due diligence, as a Rams front office typically does. And, Ty Simpson's their guy. So here we are. It's April 28th. We've got, OTAs, mandatory mini camp, and then training camp just around the corner. So it's here. It's almost here. I mean, it's crazy. Being in the draft HQ and being kind of around those really high level, intelligent sort of coaches and front office people, you're like, I'm so ready just to see all the hard work during the off season that the Rams were this close. How do they sort of rebuild and come back and tackle what will look like to be, in my opinion, the hardest division again, the NFC West. And we'll do an episode very shortly about the NFC West moves, because I like being able to sort of get people up to speed, myself included, what other teams are doing that either the Rams are contending with or could they have missed. A lot of conversation about the Niners, obviously a lot of conversation about what Mike LaFleur is doing in Arizona. So I feel like even that episode about the other teams in the division will be very interesting. I think fans would be curious about as well.
Yeah, 100%. That's going to be a fun one. Check the temperature of 6 games. The very first game on the docket is going to be that Rams 49ers game in Melbourne. So,
and Kyle Shanahan was not shy in his disapproval for the Rams. What did he say? Because I watched it the other day. He said that the Rams submitted the Niners, and then you saw that video. He's like, I'd like to submit that the Rams come down and play us in Mexico City, right?
Sure.
So, and the reason Kyle Shanahan is upset is because the argument is, or the thought behind it is that when the Niners come down to SoFi, they consider SoFi Levi South because it becomes such a 49ers, almost like a 49ers home game, and the Rams lose the home field advantage. So that was the reason they said that the
Oh, yeah, sure.
Niners were chosen. And so, of course, obviously, Kyle Shanahan not shy about his, how he felt about that.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
the betting markets out there still favor the Rams as the Super Bowl champion,
Yeah.
even though they pretty much drafted for the future. They're still betting on them. These teams that so-called win the draft, a lot of people love what the Browns did. They're still they're still not the betting favorite. They haven't moved up much. So, I think a lot of fans get upset because the Rams did not win this draft. I think they were ranked by the Athletic as the 27th best draft
Mhm.
in the league. So, but over at FanDuel, you can go bet on that right now if you're interested. Also, FanDuel's got all your best parlays for the NBA and NHL playoffs that are happening right now in full swing, still in the first round for a lot of those guys. So go check that out. Rams LFB brought to you by FanDuel Sports. Let's hop into these last couple of picks and just give our takes on where they landed. First one that came up, they traded up for this guy, CJ Daniels, wide receiver out of Miami. Everybody wanted the wide receiver. They got a wide receiver. It's a 6th rounder. We knew they didn't have a lot of draft picks, but it's always interesting when they do make that decision to move up for a guy. They moved up for Kyron Williams when they selected him, moved up for a bunch of guys last season or last year, including Jarquez Hunter, who they moved up to select. But they got the wide receiver guys. They got him.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
CJ Daniels, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I remember, because the Rams heading into the draft had 7 after they acquired Trent McDuffie. So 7, including Ty Simpson, which means day 2 and day 3, they had 6 more picks, which they obviously compiled a couple. They traded with the Eagles. They were able to move up 10, and they got CJ Daniels. And I just recall the thing that felt notable about when he was speaking to the media after he was drafted. We can Zoom with him right away from wherever he's at, which is usually their home.
Yeah.
He had said he had been through a lot of adversity, and that made him sort of the player, the person, and the good teammate that he thinks he can contribute when it comes to coming to LA and playing on a pro team. And I think that there's part of that is true. I mean, of course it's true, right? Adversity certainly tests you. It sets you up for success, especially when it comes to the highs and lows of dealing with an NFL team, schedule, opponents, a rookie. And I guess my question or my thought or my handing the ball off to you would be, there people love him, and a lot of people seem to love him, but
Yeah.
his traits seem to be more similar to a sort of Puka Nakua style, which I think says a lot, because the Tutu Atwell experiment did not really work out. But was it more so because it was just Tutu Atwell? Was it more so because he didn't have sort of that pass blocking that the Rams like to incorporate with their offensive playmakers? I mean, look, the other huge conversation is now they have 5 tight ends in the locker room. So to me, that seems to suggest they're going to big style bodies to
Mhm.
protect and to potentially help run the ball when Matthew Stafford is under center. So I mean, this is even a bigger conversation. Are we just leaning more towards a totally different type of offense for the NFL? I mean, I feel like that's a big picture question, but when it comes to what we saw did not work last year in a Tutu Atwell, and then them sort of going towards a more tight end, 13 personnel, maybe 14 personnel. I'm just saying, are we seeing sort of like the beginnings of an evolution that maybe Sean McVay might be part of? What is your take on CJ Daniels?
That's exactly where I wanted to start. When I was thinking about their 6th round picks, there was a guy hanging out on the board, Dion Burks, who's 5'8", 180, so a bit heavier than Tutu, but has sub 4.4 40 speed, so has that kind of top end speed. And I was like, well, if they lean that way and they take that that kind of player, They didn't. They didn't do that. They went for a big guy. And if you compare him to the other receivers that they have taken more recently, and even if you go all the way to Puka Nacua, that bigger style body, his body basically compares 1-to-1 Jordan Whittington, who is playing on
Yeah.
the last year of his rookie contract, if I believe. Maybe he's got two more. I think he's got two more. But I think this is a trend in the NFL where the big
Yeah.
receiver is just a lot more needed. And speaking about run blocking, this guy has over 250 snaps per year that he's played in college football as a run blocker. And if you like it, PFF grades him highly in those categories. Well enough anyway. Good for a wide receiver, I'll say. So I think that, last year, the player that was on the field a lot in 13 personnel was actually Kanate Mumfield. And a lot of those were running plays that he was in there for. So, I think this is definitely going to be a play for that. And if he contributes as a pass catcher, even better. If you can find a guy in the sixth round, even better. I mean, they got Cooper Kupp in the third, and then they found a fifth rounder in Puka Nacua, and maybe they'll find a sixth round. We don't know, but you can definitely see a place for him on this team in the very near future. And then the last thing I wanted to say about him is the adversity. He is an older player. He is 24 years old as of right now. He played 6 seasons in college football for 3 different universities, ending up with Miami for last year, but LSU before that, and 4 seasons with Liberty, and playing a lot for every one of those places. So at the end of this contract, he's going to be a 28-year-old second contractor. So always something interesting. They did that kind of with Van Jefferson as well. So I think you can see kind of where the breadcrumbs that they're moving toward. With these kinds of players, bigger, wide receiver, tight end hybrids, so I think I'm lagging.
And if you go through even just like some of the things that I've posted recently and you're reading a bit more of what the fans are saying, it is interesting to hear the pulse of what fans are feeling as you kind of pluck storylines. We have a different perspective of the team because we're media, we're around that environment. We live it and we breathe it, but I'm always kind of curious what the audience thinks. And I've been asking a lot the question of, well, what did you guys want to see? And a lot of them even did say for many different reasons, but one that was pretty potent and was kind of the prevailing theme on my comments was because of the situation with the current wide receiver room. So you have Devontae, who, most likely might leave after a year, and, he's 34. And then you have Puka, and the temperature from the audience or from the fans where they just didn't know what was going on with Puka. And I think Ryan and I don't either. We don't know how that's all going, and I'm hoping, and I think he's getting work done on the field and off the field. But it just seemed like there were a lot of fans that were reacting and just wanting to make sure that there was an insurance plan, just like we have the Rams have an insurance plan for a quarterback. The same can be said for wide receiver. And so, again, as we attempt to try to read between the tea leaves, we have no idea what Les Snead and Sean McVay are thinking. They are ridiculously brilliant, but maybe perhaps a CJ Daniels, who is more similar to a Puka, might also lend itself to just having an insurance plan or a backup plan just in case. And so I'm very curious. And then the other comment that was sort of a common prevailing theme was wanting to address special teams. Did you feel like special teams got addressed? Because I know guy number 5 is not on special teams.
Probably
Or, I
not.
mean, he's not a returner.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, probably. Yeah, definitely not. Special teams, they brought in Grant Stewart, who is kind of a special teams ace. They didn't really, go after a returner necessarily. I think too much to the dismay of fans. I think they're going to lean on Xavier Smith, despite the muff punts, and nobody even wants to hear that name sometimes. But I think Sean McVay talked about him in the press conference. I don't remember which one, but he did bring up his name as somebody that's very much involved. So, from a special teams perspective, I'm in a wait and see pattern on that one, just to see if they are taking it as seriously as I want them to, and the rest of the fans apparently want them to. But I think this points to the fact that Puka is very much in their plans for the future. If you want to talk about Super Bowl window, does Ty Simpson add to that? No, but Puka Nacua definitely was. And if they were planning on trading him or not extending him or whatever, they definitely would have gone after one of the pass catchers. So I think that's a tea leaf we can
that's right.
Definitely
Yep.
say is in the right direction. So,
Yep.
With these 6 rounders, though, you can never.
I think you just made a really great point, and you assuaged, what's the right term?
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. You comforted the fan base, which is, if they were really concerned about Puka, we probably would have seen a wide receiver sooner.
Yeah. And it seems like Puka's doing the right things. He was in rehab before all of this news even came out. He was training with his North Star Cooper Kupp. So
yeah, that's right.
Keep Cooper Kupp on speed dial. Make him your sponsor. Anytime you think about anything untoward, get Cooper Kupp on the phone. He's
Cooper's
like
got you good. He's got you good. He's
got you good.
You know what? He's living the good life. He just won a Super Bowl. He's like,
that's true.
So,
oh my God.
Cooper, you owe us.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on to this last guy before we get even longer on this one. But Tim Keenan III, Alabama. This dude is a hulking man. He's about 6 feet tall, 327 pounds. When I saw the measurements, automatically what came into my mind was Poona Ford. Poona Ford's 5'11", 213. This guy is a beast of a man. Someone posted his relative athletic score. One of the beats, I think, posted it. It's all red. He is not an athlete, guys, but he's big. He's big, and he's going to play in the middle. And given the run success rate when Poona Ford wasn't on the field went up a lot. This is you can see the reason that he's on the team, why they drafted him. The heir apparent for the 31-year-old Poona Ford, I imagine, is kind of I don't even have to imagine. I can tell you pretty much with great certainty that's what they're planning on doing. Here's the question: like, I've been pointing at defensive line depth for months now, saying they were not able to rotate. You got Jared Verse saying we've got no answers for Sam Darnold, in the big game, the NFC Championship game, and
yeah,
so I'm glad they got a guy. I would have been happier because I think that would have helped them get, help them with the Super Bowl thing. But again, obviously they're feeling very fine about where they sit. What, you have any thoughts?
327 pounds. Coming in at 27 pounds. I mean, that is a large man. You said he's 6 feet? No.
A little over. I think he's 6 and change, maybe 6'1".
Yeah. Yeah, a 3-year starter out of Alabama. So he's coming he's coming to LA, he's bringing his quarterback with him. So, the Rams like to kind of, draft or bring guys in pairs. We saw it with McDuffie and Jalen Watson. We saw it obviously with Verse and
Fisk.
and Braden Fisk. So we'll see. I guess what was he drafted? I have it pulled up. He was drafted 16th in the 7th round. And I'm terrible at math, so I'm not going to even try to break all that down. But I mean, yeah, I think that was another thing too, that they wanted either somebody like linebacker in the middle of or
Mhm.
a guy, defensive tackle, adds some depth. Like you said, a lot of the measurements, if you look them up, comparable to Puna Ford. And yeah, I don't have a ton to add on necessarily the last two, aside from they just seem like depth pieces that I think the Rams, there was something about Keenan that I think they liked about his character, and I can't
Oh,
recall if that had something to do. I guess his experience. He was voted one of four captains.
oh, nice.
And so, look, that's another thing. The Rams really like a guy that can lead, a guy that has high character, a guy that's a good plug into the locker room. And then he comes out of a really great college program like Alabama. Um,
Yeah.
that's your five. That's your top five. And then you've got your undrafted, and sometimes really great people come out of that. But it's like, yeah, the Rams did not get A's or B's among experts
Nope.
in their draft class, and I mean, who really knows until we actually know.
Winning the draft, like I said, the teams that won, according to the experts, won the draft and graded A's, they're mostly bad teams. So they mostly had more. Anyway, we don't need to talk
Yeah.
about all of them.
Well, and I'd love to see what the draft experts, sorry, real quick, said about what was it, the 2023 draft, whichever draft was the Puka. Like, what was the draft that the Rams got?
Three
So,
and three and four, they knocked out of the park, 23 and
mhm.
24.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anyway.
Which set them up in this place so they could only they drafted only 11 players. I wanted to throw out there that during his press conference, Tim Keenan says he's going to move in. He's moving in with Ty Simpson, and that because, and this is my favorite thing anybody I think has ever said, because he's a quarterback and he's got the stuff. It's like, does he mean he's got like a bunch of like cool gear and like he's got the PlayStation set up and he's got I don't know, but I love that.
Yeah.
Let's get to these UDFAs. Like I said, I haven't done my due diligence on these guys, so I apologize, but we'll have a few takeaways. I'm going to throw this up here so you can kind of see. Hopefully you guys can see that all right. I can't. Let's see if I can zoom. That'll help me. Okay. So I broke it down on my Twitter via position. So on offense, we've got a quarterback, Matthew Caldwell out of Texas, Dean Connors, running back from Houston, two more tight ends, Rohan Jones of Arkansas, Dan Villari, Syracuse, and then three offensive linemen, Austin Blosky, I want to say, North Carolina, Bryce Henderson, Vanderbilt, and Chad Lindbergh, North Carolina. What are your thoughts?
I'm literally retweeting this. Oh, okay. So here we go. You've got this this class here. Okay. I'm going to retweet your retweet. So yeah, so you said safety, outside linebacker, quarterback, running back, cornerback, offensive lineman. And one of the things that you mentioned, a lot of guys on defense in this one. There is a tight end on here, a running back. I mean, look, this is kind of what you want to see. They've got guys out of really great programs like, Alabama, more Alabama, Missouri, Wisconsin. It's hard to really speculate on an undrafted free agent, undrafted class, but
they took a lot of swings here. I'll say that. I mean, 18 players all together, 7 on offense and 11 on defense.
And is that more than what's the average going rate there?
I mean, they've had around 10, and they always get a lot, and and they've had a lot of success. I mean, Omar Spates is a guy that was a undrafted free agent. Justin Dedich, who filled in a lot, was an undrafted free agent. I might be getting this wrong, but was Alaric Jackson undrafted as well? Now starter. I'm sure Landman was undrafted. I can't remember though.
Well, one of the wide receivers was undrafted too. I don't know if it was Xavier Smith or
Xavier Smith for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so they they do a fantastic job scouting, and then picking these guys up. And, with a small draft class taking a bunch of swings here, the offensive ones, I don't like. It's hard to see any of these guys really making the roster, maybe an offensive lineman to address special teams. But the defense is really where it perks my ears a bit, because they invested, they brought in 3 cornerbacks, and they call them outside linebackers, but that's a edge rusher, defensive lineman in the scheme. And then they got 3 of those, and then 3 defensive linemen. So 6 defensive linemen, and 3 cornerbacks. So I think, I'm sure one of those edge rushers and one of those defensive linemen is going to make the roster towards the end of the day, just because they need depth at that position. And those are special teams contributors, really. I would imagine.
That's what you should be doing. And, the scouting department led by, Nicole Blake, I believe, was our post-draft presser on day 3, and really discussed a lot of the collaborative process when it came to how things work inside the building on draft day. And I mean, look, they do their due diligence. They don't always get home runs, but for the most part, they do get good draft value. And they like what they see in these guys. And I guess for me, now that this is going to be really my 3rd season covering the team, but really truly my 2nd, I think if I was a fan, or if I was a Rams fan, one of the things that I would find the most intriguing is these sort of underdog narratives of these players. And that's what I kind of enjoy the most about when you're an undrafted player and you make it to the pros. There's something that you can't really see. It's an intangible, but a self-belief. And, I had a really nice conversation with, was it Ron Gould? He's the running back. Yeah. Ron Gould. I'm not sure if I'm saying it. Ron Gould is the last name. Is the running backs coach. And he and I, it was the last day, and I'd come up to him and I said, how do you get trust? How do you build trust, and how do you get players to trust you? And, it was a really nice conversation to have with him, because he said to me, the day I stop making it about the other players and the day I make it about myself is the day I'm going to stop being a coach. And he said the first thing that young players typically say to him is, I trust you so much. And he said, well, we haven't even gone through anything hard. Let's wait and find out, how do we handle when it's choppy seas? Let's see how we handle the dark times. And so I think, when you get these young players that have a chip on their shoulder, a Julian Edelman type guy, I know Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round, but even when interviewing Ty Simpson, and I can't remember if maybe it was ESPN LA, but they interviewed him and they said, do you have a chip on your shoulder? And you know what Ty Simpson said? He said, I keep the receipts. I'm keeping the receipts. Don't be a fan later. So, I think with these stories of these young men, it's cool because they've got nothing to lose, and what an opportunity if they make an NFL roster, and then subsequently it's the Rams roster. It's really cool. So I'm going to pay attention to these guys and see, because these are the stories I actually kind of really relate to the most.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the UDFAs, and I'll have an article up. I probably won't do anything recorded about it, just because there's so much to talk about with these guys, and so much research that we'll have to go into it, that it probably will take me a little while to get through all 18. Maybe I'll split them up into offense and defense. But another one, Josh Wallace, he was another guy. Jalen McCullough was another UDFA. So they are all over the Rams roster. And yeah, I mean, I honestly love these stories so much, because they are guys that are trying so hard to continue their dream. So for a lot of these guys, this is their best chance that they'll get to make an NFL roster. So we're all rooting for them, and high hopes for them. And some of these guys will be on the roster, and we'll keep a track on these guys through training camp. And as somebody that grew up with a big chip on my shoulder. My advice to anybody out there that has that on there or keeping your receipts or anything like that, I'll say, make it work for you. Don't let it work against you.
Yeah.
Make that energy propel you forward and not hold you down. Little life lesson from an old man. Hope you don't mind. But I think that is all we've got for you guys. Go check out part 1. Great conversation, great insights from Erin Coscarelli. Her show, Believe in Rams, now co-hosted by former Rams right tackle extraordinaire Rob Havenstein. Such a cool thing for the Believe in family. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, I'm it's an exciting time, and I think a lot of ears have peaked because of what's going on. And I think whether you like the draft pick or you don't, you're still for some reason wanting to root for the Rams. There's something about the organization that you're just kind of like, okay, you're taking a chance, and it might feel controversial and your back's against the wall, but there's something about going for it. They always say when you're posting on social media, there's like this cringe that we feel, but just go do it anyways. Like, who cares? Who are you worried about? You know what I mean? Like, just do it. I tell you to do it all the time. I'm like, just do it. Like, but it's the voices in our heads. And so I think there's something about the Rams this season. I find that more fans are going to be buying in because of the Stafford narrative, because of these undrafted guys, because, you're going to root for Puka. You want to see, there's something about all of us as people that there's going to be these little fractured storylines sprinkled throughout the Rams this year. And you and I are going to be on the front lines talking about it, Ryan.
We sure are.
We sure are.
At this point in the year, I always miss the season. I always miss being able to talk about actual football, and then instead of speculating about what everything's going to look like and guessing. And so we'll be back. We'll have all this stuff for you. So as always, appreciate you guys. Keep telling your friends, keep tuning in. And we'll see you next time.